Happy Friday, YouTube. Hope you've been enjoying the March Madness. It's been a lot of fun. Hope you're in our bracket challenge. And hope you're subscribing to our channel and liking our videos and ready for a fun episode with some serious fantasy analysis. Here we go right now on Fantasy Football Today. All right, it is Friday morning. Happy Friday. Let's rock and roll. We have done our Raiders research. We've got some more stats to throw at you after our bonus pod last night. You know, it's fun to do those bonus pods, but it's also fun, Dave, to kind of sit there and look at stats that we hadn't looked at before and maybe change our opinions a little bit. Dave and I were chatting this morning. Man, are we too low on Derek Carr? So we'll get to that in a second. We got the Allen Robinson news as he's on the Rams. They might trade Robert Woods. We'll talk about Robert Woods and Robinson and what you need to know about them. A lot of tight end news. It looks like Rob Gronkowski is probably going to be back in Tampa Bay. We haven't really talked about Austin Hooper getting released and what that might mean. I don't know. Maybe some low-end tight end sleepers have emerged. But breaking news, Heath is in 11th place in our bracket challenge. And he just, I don't know. You just seem to be one of those guys who's very lucky with these. So we'll see how it plays out. But
I don't know why you would ascribe that to luck.
because you told me
the amount of research and time that I spent both on CBSSports.com, reading all of the great expert content we have there, and then on Sportsline, going through what the model suggests. I try to combine the computers and the humans and just put together the perfect bracket every year. I've fallen short again. I'm not perfect, but we got a chance here. Gonna make a run at it.
All right.
I asked my 14-year-old daughter who I should take, and she picks teams based on how silly they sound. We have Gonzaga winning the national championship.
We were happy with Kentucky losing, right?
I had them in my
happy. Yeah, I was happy. I mean, I like those storylines. And apparently, if you read Sportsline, which is great if you want to gamble on some games, I know one of our experts on Sportsline really likes Auburn. I honestly forget Jacksonville State. I think they're playing. Likes the other team to cover and thinks that Auburn as a 2 seed might lose. Like has a chance, not picking it, but has a chance to lose today. So
why would that be of interest to you, Adam? I wonder.
Yeah, I don't really think Miami's going to win today, but they would play the winner of the Auburn game. So anyway, let's get to fantasy football here. Email of the day. This was last week before the Raiders trade from Megan. With gas prices so high, are we fading Derek Carr? Should we be targeting PJ Walker? Carr, Walker. Okay. Yeah. Anyway.
That was excellent, really.
Yeah,
it was clever. I just want to keep real life out of this podcast.
I mean, it wasn't good as Placebo Samuel, but
it was better than Placebo Samuel. All right, so talking points. Do you want to start with Derek Carr or Darren Waller? Because I think I may have sold Carr short yesterday, and I think Heath is way too low on Darren Waller. Like Heath's nuts on Darren Waller. So what do you want to talk about here?
Man, first off, I think I said at the beginning of the podcast last night, like, who knows what I'm going to think when I wake up in the morning or after a week of researching this. Like as you were saying, we do these instant reactions and then often plug the numbers in. But I think what I said last night was that like Darren Waller was going to fall to tight end 6. And where did everybody have him, at 4 or 5 before this trade? I did the projections. He didn't move at all. Because there was a big gap behind him.
Mm-hmm.
I do think like he's not. I could see Kyle Pitts, who I currently have behind him, but will have ahead of him as soon as Deshaun Watson makes it official that he's going to Atlanta. I could see Kyle Pitts being the tight end 1. And Adams' arrival, I think, takes that possibility off the table for Waller. But I don't know, like, if I have Waller 3rd or 6th, there's not a huge difference in my projections between Waller, Hockenson, Pitts, and Kittle right now.
To me, it's just Hockenson. I mean, I'm surprised that you'd consider dropping him below Hockenson.
Well, I think this is a Joe Mixon situation. In that I never got as excited about what TJ Hockenson could have been last year. And so I'm not going to be as low on everyone who got burnt by him last year.
Right. Does this change the fact that the way we looked at tight end was there was a big five that you were going to put in some order. It was most likely going to be Kelsey, Andrews, 1, 2, and then figure out 3, 4, 5 with Waller, Pitts, and Kittle. But the Adams trade, is that how you saw the tight end position with a big five and then a clear cutoff after 5? And then the Adams trade, does that change that? And does that make it really a big 4? And put Waller on the outside? Is that how you're seeing it?
I had Hockenson in the same range as Kittle and Waller and Pitts before this trade. So I saw it as a top 2 that was undeniable, and then 4 that could go in just about any order you want. But Pitts will probably end up 3rd, assuming that he gets the quarterback that we think he's going to. But like even last year, I think the difference between Waller and Hockenson was 0.2 of a fantasy point on a per game basis. And yeah, it was a bad year for Waller, but the outlier is probably in his career going to look like 2020.
Yeah, touchdowns are really the big thing for him. I think in 2019 and 2021, he was on pace for 3 touchdowns in 17 games. And in 2020, I think he was on pace for 8 or 9. But yeah, I guess the headline really is more about Hockenson, and that he I didn't know that you had him so close to Waller and Kittle when, Dave, you jump in after.
I would not have, except for the fact that I dropped Waller from where I had him going into last year, and now dropped him just a little bit more, I guess. And then the Kittle has the Trey Lance concerns. It's more that Waller and Kittle. It's funny that their names make Swaddle. Have come down into that Hockenson range, I think.
Go ahead, Dave.
I'm going to be cold on Hockenson. It has a little bit to do with last year. It has a lot of bit to do with Amon-Ra St. Brown stepping up. I don't think he's going away in this offense. I don't think he'll be as targeted as much in the Detroit offense, but they're following through on what their receiver coach said back at the Senior Bowl, which is we want to add pieces to the passing game. They got DJ Chark for whatever he brings them for 1 year. I assume they're going to draft another wide receiver that will take more targets away from Hockenson. And I think Hockenson could be stuck in this area in fantasy where he has decent target volume from game to game, but doesn't have great stats to necessarily go along with it. He can get you right around 10 PPR points. He did that in 8 of 12 games last year, at least 10 PPR points. That's fine. But I'm the one that I go back and forth is, do I like Hockenson less than I like Dallas Goedert? And I think it'll take how the Lions finish off their offseason for me to determine where I fall on that. But for now, I have absolutely no problem taking Waller, Kittle, Dalton Schultz, Rob Gronkowski, assuming Gronk is back in Tampa Bay, all ahead of Hockenson.
And we should also point out the Eagles are continuously linked to wide receivers. They seem to really want to upgrade at that position. They were in on Calvin Ridley. And if they add another significant wide receiver, there still are a few out there like Juju, like we talked about yesterday. If they add a significant wide receiver, I think that's, for a team that had the fewest pass attempts in football last year, it'll sure be higher, but they're not going to be a throw first team. That could definitely affect the Goddard rankings. And you could also, for Waller, we'll finish up on Waller here. You could make the case, I won't go through all the numbers and all the paces, but you could make the case that outside of the last 5 games of the 2020 season, he really hasn't been that good over the last 2 years. 2019 was a great year. Touchdowns were low, but great year for him.
Tons of volume.
2020 was his best year. He was the number 2 tight end in football. He had 8 touchdowns that year, I believe.
9.
9. And the last 5 games were just ridiculous. He had 115 or more yards in 4 of 5 games. It started with a 200-yard game against the Jets, and he went off. I don't want to just remove them, but that was, his ADOT went way up. But I guess you could look at the last 2 years, and I could see how you'd be a little bit low on, a little bit negative on Waller because he hasn't been great outside of that 5-game stretch. So people have to parse data however they want to do it. But it is kind of worth noting there. But the overall numbers are really exciting. And then does this help or hurt him, this Davante Adams? Obviously, the targets are down. Maybe the offense will just be better. And, Dave, I think as we transition over to Derek Carr, we were thinking, man, are we too low? He's been 9th, 5th, and 6th in yards per attempt the last 3 seasons. Last year,
it's really good.
Last year, he was 5th in passing yards. and he threw 23 touchdowns, and the rest of the top 10 in passing yards threw at least 33 touchdowns. His yards have been impressive. His yards per attempt anyway. So it's just the touchdown rate's been terrible. Can Davante Adams fix that? And if so, then we could really be looking at a late career breakout or something like that.
We could be looking at an amazing late round pick in fantasy leagues where you just wait to take Derek Carr and he's your starting quarterback for the season and he pays off in a different way. Yes, his yards per attempt has been great over the last 3 years. He's been good in just terms of general yardage as well. And that's with him being reeled in a little bit as far as pass attempts back in 2019 and 2020. He kind of was allowed to throw more in 2021 once John Gruden especially left the team. He certainly showed that he can get lots of yardage. It's that touchdown rate. And really, it's the red zone touchdown rate that I'm scared to death of when it comes to Derek Carr. But then you think about all the receivers that Derek Carr's had over the last 3 years. Waller, probably the best one among them. And then he had things going with Hunter Renfrow a little bit last year. His red zone touchdown rate ranked 33rd, 46th, and 38th over the last 3 years. Just crazy, ridiculous numbers. Obviously, that includes some quarterbacks that weren't full-time players, but even so, low red zone touchdown rate for Derek Carr. He struggled in the red zone. His completion rate in the red zone also really bad. And now you're getting somebody like Davante Adams. Davante Adams in the red zone. And granted, Aaron Rodgers is his quarterback, so these numbers are going to be great. Last year, 3rd in red zone targets with 27, 4th in red zone catches with 18, 2nd in red zone touchdowns with 10. And that was a down year for him compared to 2020 when he was first, and first in those 3 categories in the red zone. So obviously Davante Adams is going back to Las Vegas and the Raiders because it's his childhood team and because Derek Carr was his guy. They combined for over 3,000 yards and I want to say 38 touchdowns at Fresno State. 2 years at Fresno State. These two are friends, and they're going to have that same level of synergy that Adams had with Rodgers. I just don't know if Carr is as good of a passer. Actually, I do know he's not as good of a passer as Aaron Rodgers, but he'll find ways to get Adams the football. And I think that Carr's numbers are going to obviously be elevated because he's got Davante Adams there along with Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow and Josh McDaniels now calling plays. McDaniels knows a thing or two about being aggressive on offense when he's got a quarterback that he trusts. So I think Derek Carr is absolutely in the conversation of being a top 12 fantasy quarterback. And he might not be the 12th off the board, but we had a conversation last week. This was when Brady came back about the right strategy for drafting a quarterback. And that was wait. Like Jamie talked about it. Jamie had Tom Brady ranked 5th or whatever. And he said, I might have him ranked 5th, but I'm still going to wait forever to get a quarterback. Carr is another name added to that list now where you can just wait on that position and draft him to begin the year. And the best part is that he's got the schedule for the Raiders. And this is really going to be the schedule for pretty much everybody that plays against or in the AFC West. Lots of games that figure to be high scoring matchups, tons of opponents against teams with huge offenses. So potentially a lot of 35-32 type football games, lots of touchdowns being scored, but also they've got a lot of games against teams that don't have good offenses and don't necessarily have good defenses either. And that'll help Derek Carr. Maybe they win those games 28-13, something like that. This is going to be a potent offense. You're going to want to have pieces of it. Carr, one of those value pieces on draft day.
Yeah. I think there's going to be 10 quarterbacks that are going to be kind of the top 10. And then there's 4 guys who are looking very, very similar. Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, going from 11 to 14. And you could make an argument for any of those guys, I think, at 11 right now. And they all have the upside to get into the top 7 or 8, probably not top 5 at this point. I did a Twitter poll this morning for Dynasty. Who would you rather have as your quarterback in a Dynasty league, Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers? Carr currently at 45% of the vote, Rodgers at 44%. Basically,
the
flip.
T results.
Why do you do that? Just don't let people out easy.
Coin flip.
Yeah, that's interesting. Who would you rather have, Carr or Rodgers in Dynasty?
Carr. I mean, I'm going to have him really, really close to a coin flip and redraft, and I think Carr has probably twice as many years left as Rodgers.
Yeah, let me just read what I wrote to Dave, because I know that some people are going to push back on this. I'm not a scout. I get it. But we all watch a lot of football, and we all use that to inform our decisions. And I just said, if Carr can throw more touchdowns, it seems like he can have a pretty big season. But for some reason, I have my doubts. Probably because I think there are at least 10 quarterbacks who are clearly better or much better than him as football players. And then there are the mobile guys who aren't better, but are potentially better for fantasy. And I don't know. I don't want to sell Derek Carr short. I just feel like he's not as good as the numbers. I don't think he's the number 6 quarterback, even though he's 6th in yards per attempt and he was 5th in passing yards or whatever. I don't think that. I know that there are more than 6 quarterbacks who are better than him. And I don't think it's just like the weapons. I just think he's good. He's good. He's solid. He's Kirk Cousins-y. And somebody tweeted last week, I wish I remember who it was, that Kirk Cousins is the poster child for the analytics versus eye tests, because Cousins is great. He's had a terrible offensive line for 3 years in a row in terms of the PFF grade. He doesn't turn the ball over. His completion percent, like everything is great. But we watch football and we don't really think Kirk Cousins is in that realm, right? In that group. And that's how I feel about Derek Carr. So I want to get excited, but I don't. Something's holding me back, and that's just. It's not mediocrity. It's above. He's been above average, but he's just not. He's not a great.
So let's forget about rushing production for a moment.
Yeah,
because these conversations often frustrate me, and I
know.
Put as much into that as you do. But I could be wrong.
I don't put that much into it, though. I will say that.
Right. Well, I'm not saying you put a lot into it. It's just more than me.
Yeah. Okay.
Who are the quarterbacks right now who you are saying, yes, those guys are definitely better passers than Derek Carr?
Okay. Josh Allen, Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers. Like pure
Wilson.
Russell Wilson. Yeah, I'm looking at fantasy points. So Russell Wilson, and I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, but no, that might be it.
So that was 8.
Deshaun Watson.
So Derek Carr, arguably a top 10 passer.
Yeah, I didn't put Kyler in there. I didn't put Lamar Jackson in there.
I think that's fair. I think.
Oh, maybe like I don't know, Matt Ryan. But in that group, I don't know how to Ryan. I don't know anymore.
Right, and so like you were just saying, I don't think he's the 6th best, and that's what he was according to this stat last year. But he's been a low-end top 10 passer according to these stats you're talking about.
Yeah,
you view him as a borderline top 10 passer.
It's so much work, but not even close to most of the guys that I mentioned. I think that's kind
of and I think that might be like, I don't think he's anywhere close to Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or probably Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson. But I don't know that he's that far from the guys that are 6 through 9 as passers.
Herbert, Burrow,
and he just got Davante Adams.
Yeah.
Like I would think, and another thing to remember, and one of the reasons I get frustrated is this game that we play does not give any points for eye tests or scouts' opinions. It gives points for stats.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's produced this level of stat without Davante Adams. We should assume, I think, that statistically he will probably improve with Davante Adams.
Well, he's only had one season, Derek Carr, where he's finished higher than 17th per game.
He has not thrown the ball very much recently. As Dave was talking about, kind of being held back by Gruden, I think.
No, last year he threw a lot, and the year before, actually, the problem, if you look at his per game the year before, he had a game where he threw 5 passes and got hurt, and that screws everything up. But he's not, they weren't like airing it out, but I don't know. I mean,
Gruden liked it that he would go for high percentage passes, and Carr, and then this includes last year, has routinely been outside of like the top 15 in deep pass attempt rate. So he's good when he throws deep. He just hasn't been able to pull the trigger as often as other quarterbacks have.
But, Heath, I bring it up because I know fantasy managers are going to, not all, but I know many of them are going to just be skeptical of Derek Carr because of his career so far, which has been good, not great. You know, like they are going to use, many of them are going to use the eye test. They're going to say, well, he's Derek Carr. So I think that is going to come into play when we look at ADP.
Nobody's thinking of him as a top 5 quarterback.
Right.
We're just going to debate whether or not, like, he's the perfect guy to draft with Trey Lance or Justin Fields.
Heath.
And hope that one of the upside guys hits, and they don't. You've got a good starting quarterback.
Do you think Carr has a chance to finish as QB5 in fantasy points per game?
Sure. Not a very good one.
That sure sounds like 10%. Doesn't sound like there's no question like you're going to put like Burrow ahead of him in that regard, and Dak and Kyler and all those guys.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, Burrow is much, much closer to the Rodgers, Cousins, Stafford group than it seems to be for
I agree with that,
other
though.
people.
Right.
So I don't know that I would think that Burrow's chances are a lot better than Carr's.
But better.
Probably a little.
Stafford?
Very, very similar. I don't know how I would distinguish.
I would say that he's probably a little bit closer. I could see Stafford finishing top 5 a little bit easier. I was going to say a lot, but no, a little bit easier than Carr. But I think Carr's close. I think he deserves to be in this range that we're talking about.
All right, so why don't we go to the Rams then? So we already did a podcast on the Raiders, but I think these are going to be great debates throughout the offseason. Yeah, free agency has been so boring, but the trades have been awesome. This is great. All right, so we go to the Rams. They sign Allen Robinson. It's a 3-year deal. I believe it was $45 million and $30 million guaranteed for Allen Robinson. And now reportedly Robert Woods is on the trading block. And Robinson, I want to say, is going to be 29. Woods, I know, is going to be 30.
Yes.
So these guys are up there, and these guys are coming off seasons that didn't look so great. But again, they might not have both of them. By the way, I have to do some promotion here. We're going to have a post-free agency rankings debate on Monday. We're going to have Samantha Praviti on Tuesday for winners and losers from free agency and trades and all that, plus some buy or sell. And Thursday, we're going to be talking Dynasty as the dust settles here on this past week, or it'll be 2 weeks of fantasy, of football action, off-season action, and we'll see what the Dynasty stock looks like. So 3 shows next week, barring any, not including any bonus pods,
and a big show on HQ on Monday too. Yes,
we have a free agency special HQ on Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So check that out. That's going to be a lot of fun, and you can be a part of it. You can tweet us with some questions and things like that. But we'll be wrapping up free agency on Monday on CBS Sports HQ, which you can watch on the CBS Sports app, or of course I have it on my Roku. So any smart TV, just download the CBS Sports app. You can watch HQ, and yeah, it's actually perfect right now. The March Madness coverage is spectacular. All right, go to the Rams. Let's start with Stafford, I guess. Value up, down, to the same as they sign Allen Robinson. And let's go quickly on Stafford, and so we can focus on the wide receivers here. Dave, go ahead, Heath. Sorry.
As of right now, it sounds like the plan is they would like to still get Beckham, and they'd like to move Woods. And so I don't know that I view Stafford any differently. I thought it was going to be Kupp, Woods, and Beckham, or Kupp, Woods, and Jefferson. And now it looks like it might be Kupp, Robinson, and Beckham, or Kupp, Robinson, and Jefferson. And I'm fine with any of those. He's a borderline number 1 quarterback. I'd take him before Carr, but they're right in the same conversation.
Okay. As of now, I feel the exact same way.
Perfect. So
I'm waiting to take a quarterback. One of those guys will be there. That guy will be my starter for the season.
This was a pretty unexpected, at least in my opinion, destination for Allen Robinson. Just did not see this coming. And it's fun. It's exciting, Put him on a great offense, and we'll see what he's got left. He can be the number 2 guy. He's never been, unless you want to count Darnell Mooney, he's always been number 1 with kind of junk at number 2 receiver. This is a brand new role for him. So where right now do you have Allen Robinson in your rankings?
Not very high. I believe he's right around 100th overall. Not at the receiver position, of course. That's just in the rankings. I've got him outside my top 36 at wide receiver, but that's assuming that Robert Woods stays. And then that minimizes what Robinson can do. I spent a lot of time watching Mitchell Trubisky film from his days in Chicago. And I also watched a little bit of Robinson in 2021 just to see him. And he can still separate with footwork, but his speed isn't really there anymore. I don't know if it ever really was.
I had Robinson at 41 before he signed with the Rams. I put him into the projections and he came out at 39th. So that is factoring in Robert Woods being there. But my expectation is that if Woods is not going to be there, then Beckham is.
Yeah, but then that might only be for like 10 games. Robinson could at least get you off to a hot start. Potentially.
It just depends. Like what's Cooper Kupp's target share going to be next year? If he's what he was, even Beckham was scoring touchdowns, but at 40 yards a game, basically.
Yeah, and Woods wasn't really having a good game. He played a good season. He played 9 games. I think he had more than 70 yards twice, and it was kind of uninvolved. It's just weird. They had such a great year, and nobody benefited except for Cooper Kupp. He got all of the benefit. If you just look at raw passing numbers from the Rams, you would have thought it would have been more distributed, more equally distributed.
And I've talked about this before, and so I think we should just bring it up. Sean McVay is not married to any offensive philosophy or any, if Cooper Kupp was a 25% target share guy this year and fell to be a low-end number 1 wide receiver again, and Allen Robinson was a good number 2, that wouldn't be all that surprising, but just hard to expect it after what we saw last year.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of Robinson because last year, he didn't get his contract, didn't seem to get along with the coaching staff. I don't know the inner workings of the locker room there, but reports have indicated it wasn't a great situation. And obviously a huge upgrade in passing offense here. So what is his upside? Heath, you just said he could be a number 2 wide receiver. Dave, what's the upside for Allen Robinson?
Low end number 2 wide receiver. Because I think Stafford has his guy in Cooper Kupp. That relationship, Stafford to Kupp, it feels exactly like Rodgers to Davante Adams. I don't see that changing.
Yeah. Now, Robert Woods has been top 18 per game, including this past season, by the way, 4 straight seasons in full PPR and 3 of 4 in non-PPR. But it is so much different if you take his rushing totals out. And I don't think you're going to get that from Allen Robinson. Robert Woods, very reliable running the ball, but he has shown that he can be a number 2 wide receiver, a high to mid range number 2 wide receiver. But if you take the rushing, it's more like a number 3 receiver, sometimes a number 4 receiver. Take out the rushing. All right. So would you rather have right now, if you're drafting right now, Allen Lazard or Allen Robinson?
Robinson.
What do you mean, Robinson? Allen Lazard's the number 1 receiver for the Packers.
That's nobody believes that's going to happen, and no one that's Aaron Jones is probably the number 1 receiver for the Packers right now. I'm more interested about where Robert Woods is going to end up, like which AFC West team is going to trade for him.
What about AFC East?
No, only good players are only allowed to go to the AFC West this offseason.
Yeah, I know. But I could see there is some sentiment that Buffalo would welcome him back.
Will the Rams trade him to the Packers? Or they just say, no, we're not sending you there.
Is Robert Woods the best available wide receiver in your mind for fantasy purposes? 30 years old, coming off a torn ACL.
Right,
probably
but you're lining him up against Juju Smith-Schuster. I would say no. I think Juju's probably a little bit better. You're lining him up against Julio Jones. I don't know if Julio can stay healthy for 10 games. Oh, you're lining him up against Odell. Odell
Jarvis.
also coming off of a torn ACL. I would take him ahead of a healthy Jarvis.
Is Cooper Kupp the number 1 wide receiver in your rankings right now?
Yes.
Is that 2 yeses?
Yes,
it is.
Okay. If we're doing a salary cap draft with a $200 budget, how much does Cooper Kupp go for? And how much does your number 2 wide receiver, whoever that may be, go for?
I would ballpark Kupp at 50 and the receiver behind him at 49.
Yeah, I think there's a little bigger gap there. I'd probably go Kupp backup at 60 and the receiver behind him at 49.
Wow.
And who is the receiver behind him?
Right now, it's Jefferson for me.
It's Jefferson and PPR, Chase and non-PPR for me.
Okay. More free agency stuff. Let's talk about Raheem Mostert and some tight ends. Yes, honestly, Raheem Mostert. And yes, some tight ends. After a quick break for you right here on Fantasy Football Today. We'll be right back. The Dolphins sign Raheem Mostert. And here's a fun thing for you. Where have the 49ers ranked in run blocking, according to PFF? What's their run blocking grade been in the last 5 seasons? 6th, 3rd, 4th, 2nd, and 2nd. That is ridiculous. 5 straight years as a top 6 run blocking team. 4 straight years as a top 4 run blocking team. The Dolphins were 30th in 2021. But here comes Raheem Mostert to, a system that he's going to be familiar with. And I'm intrigued. How about you guys? Do you have him as a number 3 running back right now?
What do you mean? No, number 3 overall? Yes. Yes, absolutely. I'm going to take Jonathan Taylor first, Derrick Henry second, Raheem Mostert third.
Top 30 guy.
No.
Top 70.
You can start to see what the Dolphins want to do. They want to be able to have a guy who they can count on to handle the rushing downs. And then they've got another guy that they can put in those passing downs. And if need be, they could swap those two out. We've seen Mostert catch a pass before. We've seen Chase Edmonds run between the tackles before. We know Mostert's going to be a great fit for what this run offense should be, that outside zone scheme. Edmonds should be a great fit as well.
Mostert will be 30 next month. His career high is 137 rush attempts in a season. Last year, Chase Edmonds set a career high with 9.6 rush attempts per game.
Oh, okay. Who's the highest ranked Dolphins running back for you? And I'll remind you, Raheem Mostert averaged 10 yards per carry last year.
He is in YPC leagues. Raheem Mostert might be the number 3 running back. He's at 5.7 yards per carry for his career.
Yeah.
But his career is fewer carries than a Derrick Henry season. He has 284 career rush attempts in 9 years in the league. 7 years.
It's pretty impressive, though. 5.7 yards per carry. It's impressive.
It is very impressive playing for the number 2, number 3, number 6, number 8 run blocking team in the NFL.
Number 8. He was always 6 or higher, but he was better than everyone else. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah. It's not like everyone was as good as Raheem Mostert. He has been the best, most effective running back for the 49ers in that 5-season stretch. All right, but who, Edmonds or Mostert right now?
Edmonds.
I
think he'll play more games.
All right. You guys don't seem too enthused about Mostert. That is fine. How about...
He's a 0 RB guy. You want to be the person in your league that takes receivers and tight ends at the start of the draft, or if you're in a super flex league, you're going to take a quarterback or 2 real early on, and you're just going to eschew that running back position, then Mostert's someone who's going to be on your list to start the season with.
By the way, I made a bold prediction, I think, last week. A guarantee. I don't remember if it was a guarantee or what, that Kyle Pitts would be a 2nd-round pick by the time we got to, August. I'm 1 trade away, which has a 50% chance of happening from that being reality in April. So my other prediction, I think, the Dolphins could easily address running back, but I think Mostert's going to have some helium, as they say. I'd like to say that in a high-pitched voice. I think as we get closer to the season and people start seeing the appeal that you just said as a 0 RB guy, I think he's going to settle in the 7th round or something like that. Raheem Mostert, because he'll be lining up to be the number 1 running back for the Dolphins.
I just but that's the thing. When you say he'll be lining up to be the number 1 running back for the Dolphins, he's not going to catch passes. At least not sharing with Edmonds. Edmonds will have that role.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't expect him to play a full season. So how many carries are you going to project for Raheem Mostert?
I don't know. I think you get to the point in the draft where you don't need a guy to play a full season. You just need him to be good when he's in the lineup. I don't know. 100 and I don't know.
It's the
maybe
7-8 range.
15 carries in one game, and he has a really good week 1, and that's it. It's what you drafted for.
I would not like to use my 7th round pick on a running back who's going to give me a good week, hopefully.
Yeah. We'll see. That might be a little crazy. I'm just riding the momentum of my Kyle Pitts call. I think I'm just, I'm doubling down. Hey, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, Monday Night Football. What do you think? Are you excited for that?
I've been listening to them for years. Now I'm going to listen to them on Mondays instead of Sundays. It's fine. It's great.
They're very
Okay,
good.
so I know somebody who, and I don't know if you know this or not. Joe Buck, obviously, like Hall of Famer, one of the best at his craft. He has a large contingency of people who don't enjoy listening to him.
Yeah.
Really has a lot of, and I know one of those people. And so they saw the Fox News and they were excited. And I was like, well, I mean, it's Joe Buck. He's going to be on Monday Night Football now on ESPN. And they perked right up. They said, well, at least we've got the Manning cast. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a different day.
The fact that people hate Joe Buck actually makes me feel better about myself, because I get a lot of hate from listeners, and Joe Buck I think he's tremendous. I understand how he could rub people the wrong way, but as a broadcaster, I mean, he is so good.
One of the best of his generation. Yes.
Yeah. So if people could hate Joe Buck, then, then I guess I won't take it too personally, I guess. Not to say I'm Joe Buck, but, people hate anyone, including me. Anyway, some more news and notes. We'll get to your emails in a minute. fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Deshaun Watson is deciding between New Orleans and Atlanta. When it happens, you'll hear from us. The Giants signed Tyrod Taylor to a 2-year deal. And obviously, there's some upside, at least for playing time there. Baker Mayfield requested a trade, but the Browns have denied his request. Should we talk about the Browns a little bit, Dave? What do you think about the Browns quarterback situation?
And what a mess, but it's kind of one that the Browns front office brought upon themselves. But it also feels like no one really likes Baker Mayfield anymore. Like, you want to talk about people not liking Joe Buck or Adam Azer. I think there are a lot of people out there that just do not like Baker Mayfield in Cleveland right now. I can't imagine how they mend that fence outside of giving him a big contract extension, which I just don't think the Browns are ready to do at this point. So we'll see what happens. I'm thinking that the Browns will have somebody else starting at quarterback for them. And maybe it's someone who actually ends up helping Amari Cooper. Because right now we've got Cooper. I'll speak for myself. I have Cooper as a number 3 fantasy receiver right now. I'd love to see him with a quarterback, and certainly with a change in offensive philosophy that might come with a different quarterback that puts him into that low-end number 2 range.
Look at this comment from Jasmine. Imagine getting stuck in a room with Joe Buck, Adam Azer, and Baker Mayfield. Yikes. I thought Jasmine and I were buds.
I like Jasmine a lot. Probably our favorite commenter. And this would be terrible. It'd be super awkward. I don't know what I'm even going to say. What do I do with my hands?
Have you tried Aikman's new beer, Heath asks?
I have not tried Troy Aikman's new beer. I'm going to do the flip-flop on Baker Mayfield, and this happens a lot throughout the years where I don't like somebody because everybody else likes him too much, and now I'm going to start liking him because I don't know if there's much difference between Baker Mayfield and that group of quarterbacks we were just talking about in the right situation. Like, he's on a very low pass volume offense. He was awesome before he got hurt last year. He's shown flashes of being very good. We have no idea how much the injury affected him last year, and a lot.
Significant.
But I don't think the Browns get better by trading Baker away and getting Jimmy. I'm not sure if they get better by trading Baker away and getting Matt Ryan at this stage of his career, but maybe. So it's going to come down to, is Baker Mayfield actually going to sit out and cost himself money the year before he becomes a free agent? I don't think that makes any sense. I think they mend. You know how you mend this fence? Go trade for Robert Woods and say, here you go, Baker. We got you Amari Cooper and Robert Woods. We're sorry. This is it's like buying flowers after you messed up.
No,
we had to go talk to Watson. I'm sorry. Here you go.
The buying flowers isn't Robert Woods. It's a contract extension.
Well, they're not going to do that.
No flowers are coming for Baker Mayfield.
And you said nobody in Cleveland likes him, but he has, as you recall, he has his book club and his trick-or-treaters that show up, the commercials. No? Okay.
I
Let's
thought
go
it was
to running back news. Dolphins signed Raheem Mostert. The Raiders signed fullback Jakob Johnson and running back Brandon Bolden, both from the Patriots. So now they are with Josh McDaniels over with the Raiders. Do you see a passing downs back on this team, or is it still Josh Jacobs?
Couldn't it be Kenyon Drake?
Yeah, could be, but I don't know. I don't know what happened there. It seems like after Gruden got fired, he fell out of favor.
So it could be Drake. It could be Bolden. It could be someone that they draft. I can't rule out Jacobs handling some of that work as well. He did a decent job catching passes last year. He proved that he could do it. Could he get better at it? Sure. But I also think he's better suited to be the rushing downs guy.
He will be the rushing downs guy. Just will he?
Yeah, I sure as hell would hope so.
I would also say with Davante Adams and Darren Waller and Wes Welker, I don't think there will be as many running back targets as there have traditionally been in a Josh McDaniels offense.
Washington signed J.D. McKissick to that 2-year deal. We talked about that on a live stream on YouTube, but not on a podcast. So Devin Singletary is saved for now. Antonio Gibson loses that big upside for now. Well, no, not for now. And would you rather have J.D. McKissick or Chase Edmonds?
Edmonds.
Okay. J.D. McKissick or Raheem Mostert?
Mostert.
That's probably close enough to where it would depend on my roster construction. I think McKissick is a lot better PPR floor for sure.
Patriots signed Ty Montgomery. That is probably not significant. As he'll be.
Oh, what do you mean?
Why you think they signed James White? What role is Ty Montgomery going to have?
Ty Montgomery is going to have a number of roles
On special.
They will love that versatility. He can return kicks and punts.
Right.
He can play wide receiver. He's done that before. Remember when he used to wear number 88? Maybe he's still down on around.
He has 1 year with more than 25 catches in his career.
He could potentially serve a purpose. He's going to serve more than one purpose in New England, but he could serve a purpose on offense as well.
Okay, but not in a fantasy relevant way.
Oh, hell no.
Right. And then what about this? Atlanta signed Damian Williams. Heath, what do you think about that?
I think he's probably better than Mike Davis. So I would certainly hope that the Falcons are going to have a better running back on their roster than Mike Davis or Damian Williams by the time we get to May. But and it's weird to think that they have Mike Davis, they went and signed Damian Williams, and they're still going to bring Cordero back. So I don't know.
Well, I think things are probably somewhat on hold for the Falcons until they find out who.
It's weird. It's also weird that they'd make that move with they've got some maneuvering to do salary cap wise. I would think adding even $1 million for somebody like Damian Williams is kind of weird.
So the wide receiver news: Chris Godwin signed a 3-year, $60 million deal with $40 million guaranteed, and Tampa Bay also re-signed Rashad Perryman, and of course they brought in Russell Gage. You know about Allen Robinson of the Rams. Adams to the Raiders. Tennessee planning to release Julio Jones, which is going to save them $9.5 million in cap space. So another one we talked about Wednesday night on the live stream, but not here on the podcast. Dave, give me your thoughts on Julio Jones being released. First of all, did you move A.J. Brown up in your rankings? You did say yesterday that you had Brown ahead of Davante Adams.
I switched that. Adams is back ahead of Brown. And I did not move Brown up in the rankings. I do assume that the Titans will bring in somebody else to get some targets away from A.J. Brown. But I think A.J. Brown's headed toward a year where he could pick up north of 130 targets, maybe even in that 150 target range. And that would be really good. Julio is, I love the idea of Julio Jones catching passes from Aaron Rodgers. Like, that sounds fun. That sounds like an all-star thing. But we know that Julio's just not the same dude that he was once upon a time.
Yeah, I would be pretty excited about that, though. It would at least make for fun draft debates.
Sure. I would even be excited if he went back to Atlanta.
The Bears
him and Kyle Pitts on the same field. That's a lot of beef.
the Bears signed Byron Pringle and EQ
games.
St. Brown. So not big upgrades for the Chicago Bears.
I think Pringle got like $6 million. He might
Like
actually
$4 million
see some
guaranteed.
targets.
It's a 1-year deal, so they're looking for a number 2 receiver. Those guys are candidates now.
And Buffalo released Cole Beasley. So let's go to the tight end news, which is somewhat interesting on a low end level, other than Gronkowski, who's much higher end. And we've been talking about, you got this big 5 or big 4, whatever it may be. And then you got Hockenson, you got Goddard. When Rob Gronkowski is back with the Bucs, which seems likely at this point, where are you going to rank Rob Gronkowski?
I believe I'm 7th.
I will have him likely. I haven't updated him since I wasn't sure if Brady was playing, but I would guess he'll be 10th.
He was 4th per game in non-PPR. He was 3rd per game in full PPR. He played 12 games, kind of only played 11 games. He had 10% of the snaps in one game against the Saints and left quickly. So he only got really 11 games out of Gronk. He had 6 touchdowns, and they were all in 3 games, 2 in one game, 2 in another game, 2 in another game. And it was against the Falcons, the Cowboys, and the Falcons. Got 4 of his 6 touchdowns against the Falcons. And he wasn't really that good in 2020 after they brought in Antonio Brown. And he wasn't really that good in 2020 when they had O.J. Howard. So I know I was so wrong about Gronk last year. One of my worst calls. And
what was your call?
Just that he was a bust. That I had no interest in Gronk. I didn't think they had 3 great wide receivers, and Gronk was basically behind Cameron Brate in the playoff run until the Super Bowl. So I just didn't see anything coming from him really, and he had a great season, on pace for 78 catches, 1,136 yards, and 8 touchdowns. But yeah, I don't know. Can he do that again? It doesn't seem like you guys feel like he will be top 5 again anyway. As Dave said, he'd have him 7th and Heath closer to 10th. So I guess I should ask a question there. What do you make of what do you make of the difference between his 2020 season and his 2021 season?
I think he was better in 2021, but he got hurt, so he didn't play as many games. And
we were all pretty surprised at how well he did based on our preseason.
Everyone was very surprised. I don't think anybody thought he was going to be a top 3 or 4 tight end last year. I don't think anybody's going to think he's going to be a top 5 tight end this year. He is a starting option that you should expect to have to replace for at least a period of time. He will be 33 when the season starts. It was good to see that he can still be elite when he plays.
Dave, have any sleeper tight ends emerged? Like maybe David Njoku?
Nah. I mean, maybe Dawson Knox, and even now, I'm not sure how excited I am because they've got O.J. Howard. I think the answer to that question, and this is low-end sleeper. This is not somebody who I'm going to say, yeah, go get him. But Evan Ingram will have a chance to restart his career in Jacksonville.
Well, the one that emerged kind of before this all got started, but it was Albert O.
What about Hayden Hurst with Cincinnati?
Yeah, that's not a bad call. But again, he's going to end up being at best 3rd on the team in targets.
So you got Hayden Hurst on the Bengals, Albert O with the Broncos, David Njoku with Austin Hooper being released. And Austin Hooper, by the way, led the team in red zone targets 2 straight years, I believe, or he was maybe he was second 1 year behind Jarvis Landry, but very gets a lot of targets inside the 20-yard line and around the end zone. So that's a big vacancy, and Landry will be gone too. I'm sorry. So you got Njoku, Ingram, Alberto, and Hayden Hurst now with the Bengals. Who do you like best, Heath?
Alberto is ahead of that group, but he's the only one that's close to my top 12. The rest of them are all closer to 20. I am really curious with the Njoku Hooper thing because they played 2 tight ends all year. Right? David Njoku's snap rate wasn't that much different than Austin Hooper's. And so I don't think this is going to turn Njoku into a 100% snap guy. I think it maybe just means a lot more playing time for Harrison Bryant, maybe a few more red zone targets for Njoku, but I don't really think he's going to see a massive increase in volume.
Hooper, though, was actually, I said red zone, but he was actually second on the team in targets 2 straight years, which is
But he had
wild.
61 targets last year.
Right? Yeah, I know it wasn't a lot, but he was a kind of a big part of the offense. Is that fair to say? Of the passing game, anyway.
I mean, he had a large piece of that very small pie.
Yeah. I really don't like pie. It's just
What?
Just have cake. Just eat cake. It's so much better.
Oh, no.
All right. That's it for that news. And we don't have to go through all the defensive stuff, but Von Miller to the Bills. Maybe I shortchanged Dawson Knox there. Dave, you mentioned him. You guys like Knox better than Alberto?
I do for now.
No, I liked Alberto more than Knox before O.J. Howard was signed. So I'm probably out on drafting Knox.
Raiders, man, Chandler Jones. It's another big one. He's 32 years old. Von Miller is going to be 33 years old this month, and they both got pretty similar deals because Miller's was 6 years, 120, but according to The Athletic, it's more like 3 years, $52.5 million, and that's basically what Chandler Jones got. And Las Vegas also traded Yannick Ngakoue for Rock Ya-Sin, cornerback who was with the Colts. Atlanta signed Casey Hayward. They could have a couple of decent cornerbacks in Atlanta this year. Baltimore's been beefing up their defense. They signed safety Marcus Williams to a 5-year, $70 million deal. He was with the Saints, and they thought they were signing Zadarius Smith, which would have been a really nice deal, 4 years, $35 million. And then apparently Zadarius Smith saw what Von Miller, Chandler Jones are getting. He said, you know what? Not so fast. So
you saw the Packers suddenly have some money available.
Baltimore did sign Michael Pierce to beef up their run defense. The Eagles released Fletcher Cox. They could bring him back. The Giants released Logan Ryan for some reason.
Looks like he's going to Tampa.
Oh, that makes sense. Good veteran player there. Giants are I think the Giants are just totally tanking.
Adam Thielen restructured his contract, so he will be staying in Minnesota.
Okay, good. And that's it for that. Let's read some emails to finish the show and get you set for the weekend. This is from Charlie. Dear Bruce, Clark, Barry, and Oliver.
Those are superheroes.
Who the heck is Oliver? You don't even know.
No.
But they are.
So you don't know that they're superheroes. They could be different people.
For sure, they are.
All right, you got to tell me. Oliver Queen? Come on, somebody. Somebody.
Green Arrow.
Who is he?
The Green Arrow.
The Green Arrow. What the hell is the Green Arrow? I have this book of Marvel superheroes, and it gives an explanation on all of them. And it's so
the Green Arrow is a DC.
Yeah, I know, but
no, you didn't.
I did. Yes, I did. Because I just Googled it. Like I get it. I know. Anyway, they all started with some type of accident at some type of like industrial plant or science lab or something like that. Every superhero is the same. They were all a scientist or something, and something went wrong, and now they're a superhero. It's really I just can't get into it. All right. Anyway, Dave, Charlie is from a city 35 minutes north of Sacramento.
Good for him.
Yeah, good for him, California. 12-team PPR, 3-keeper league, no draft round penalties. Who is he keeping? He needs 3 of them. Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, Antonio Gibson, James Conner, and David Montgomery. Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, Gibson, Conner, Montgomery. Pick 3.
I think Chase and Diggs for sure. I would probably go with Gibson ahead of Josh Allen.
I would go Chase, Diggs, Montgomery.
And from Mitch has a dynasty question. 2 trades to grade in a 10-team dynasty Superflex IDP. He gives up Dalvin Cook, and he still has Alexander Madison. Actually, I don't know what side he's on here, but you tell me which side you like. Dalvin Cook for pick 204 and a 2023 first. Oh, he'd be giving this. Okay. So he's giving up Cook, still has Madison. He gets pick 204 and a first round pick in 2023, which would give him 3 first round picks in 2023.
I'm going to guess most people are going to think that's not enough for Dalvin Cook. And I would do that. If you're rebuilding, I think that's enough for Dalvin Cook for me.
You have to solely be rebuilding. I would want more.
Okay, the second one is he gives up DeAndre Hopkins and pick 303 for 109 and 309. Essentially Hopkins for the 9th pick in the rookie draft in a Superflex IDP league.
Yeah, I like that better.
I'd rather have the pick. So I think, and you're doing both those trades, and you've just added a pair of first rounders and a second and a third for Hopkins.
It sounds like he's rebuilding if he already has two ones.
I like it.
Perfect. All right. And then from Gene. Hi, Gene. I got a tough keeper question for you erudite fantasy minds to ponder. Good thing I knew how to pronounce that one. That would have been embarrassing.
I did not.
10-team half PPR. You know what? It actually wouldn't have been. I would have just skipped the word. 10-team half PPR. Joe Buck doesn't know how to pronounce that. 6-point per passing touchdown league.
Is Baker Mayfield
in his book club? All right, keep 3. Javonte Williams, round 7. Keep for 2 more years. Mahomes, round 10 for 1 more year. Kittle, round 11, 1 more year. Derrick Henry, round 12, 1 more year. Austin Eckler, round 14, 2 more years. He needs to keep 3.
running back, running back, running back.
Yep.
Okay. What are you guys doing this weekend?
I
Coaching.
don't even know, man.
Tomorrow morning, doing a beach cleanup, Deerfield Beach, picking up trash.
Wow.
And then coaching 4 hours of youth basketball. Probably going to need to drink a lot of beer after that.
Jesus. I feel need to volunteer somewhere now.
You should. That'd be great.
I should. You're right. All right. Well, anyway.
Aren't you glad you asked?
I am glad. I think that's really good of you, Heath. Good job. I mean, Heath loves being on the beach so much he'll even clean up trash on the beach. But that is good stuff. And thank you for your service, Heath Cummings. Thank you all for watching and listening. And we'll talk to you when Deshaun Watson gets traded. For Dave and Heath, I'm Adam. Thanks to Shraggy B as well.